All right. Back again with WinLoseorDraw. First time we had it was on HDC 1. That was probably years ago now, a month or so. And still got the Florida Writers Association convention coming up in Orlando. Still time to sign up, as you just told me. And
this weekend.
Okay. And you're speaking at that event, correct?
Yes, I am. Sunday morning. Sunday morning in the Conrad Room. This is the Hilton at Altamont Springs, which is just outside of Orlando, of course.
Okay.
Conrad Room 945. That's when I'll be doing my presentation.
Okay.
Now they have other speakers, of course, and meetings and workshops and a variety of other things going on.
What's their overall theme for this year?
Well, the conference and the organization, they define themselves as writers helping writers. So it's all different kinds of writing, and not just science fiction, but that's primarily what I'm interested in: science fiction and technology. As I mentioned in our first get together a couple of months ago.
Yeah. So what's your topic for it? Got a sneak preview or?
This is emergent technology and science fiction, but it's really a compilation of 3 different presentations. It's going to be, we're not going to do the whole thing today, but
Right.
it's a compilation of 3 different presentations that I have. One about science fiction primarily, the other about technology primarily, and a third presentation that I have is kind of tough love and advice for struggling writers. And I'm going to put a little bit of all 3 of those into my presentation on Sunday.
Okay.
I'm going to start with a little statement. I'd like to try it out with you, if you don't mind.
Sure. Let's hear.
I'm going to say something like this. I'm going to say, no matter what you write, past, present, and future, you'll be hard-pressed to ignore the essential element of conflict and the even more important element of conflict resolution. More often than not, these essential elements are driven by technology and the influence of technology. So that's the opening for the presentation. It's a technology and mankind live in a symbiotic relationship to each other. And that's the main point. If you want to bring up that first image there, this will be one of the first images I'll show in my presentation. You may remember this. This is, of course, the opening scene from 2001: A Space Odyssey, Arthur C. Clarke. Do you recall this movie?
I do. I do, Dave.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And you remember what happens next, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I showed this movie to my wife, and we made it almost to where the bone turned into the spaceship. That's how far along she got in 2001. But my father-in-law really likes the movie, so me and him talk about it sometimes. But yeah,
the apes wake up and find the obelisk, and after that, the ape population takes a jump forward. Is the general idea, and as you may recall, the next scene after this involves the apes taking back their water hole from another group of apes who have taken it over, and they're using hand tools, large bones, to do this, and the next scene after that is one of the apes heaving a large bone high into the air, and it spins off up into the air, and the camera follows it up into the air, and they cut from that bone to a space station or a satellite, and that's the transition from the ape world to the world of modern technology that we more or less live in today.
Oh, you think we've caught up to the 2001 time frame, or would you say that's distant future from now? I mean, it is a very short period of time between the first flight to on the moon, but do you think we're? I guess we're close.
We're not at that level of space travel yet, but we are at the level of having space stations and space travel. We just haven't got quite to that the level that the fictional world of 2001 portrays. It's kind of important to remember that it is a fictional world. Okay, Ross, if you can take that down, please.
All right.
Now, the next thing I'm going to do after that is getting a little preview of at least the beginning of what I'm going to do on Sunday. I'm going to talk about my experiences as a professor of humanities and the fact that I've taught about the role of technology throughout history. And if you don't mind, would you bring up that image too, please?
Okay.
That's one. There's two. So, yeah, this slide is going to come up, and I'm going to talk about the history of technology briefly. As you can see in that first grouping there, which is anywhere from 2.9 million years ago to 430 years ago, the very most rudimentary elements of technology are first being discovered and used, including the very last one there, the microscope and the telescope 430 years ago in the Netherlands. And then we've got the invention of the fusion and fission technologies only 78 years ago. Then you have the three below that are really very much within, well, at least my memory, maybe not yours, but mine, the internet, the World Wide Web, and the invention of the personal computer. And finally, the very last one, of course, is the invention of large language models and AI like ChatGPT, which is just starting to take off and invented only 5 years ago. Do you know the difference between the internet and the World Wide Web, Ross?
I would imagine it's access, but per se, I do not know the difference. Is one closed and one open?
The internet is when they invented the system for computers to be able to communicate. And the World Wide Web is where, this is Tim Berners-Lee, where they invented the ability to search, find, and retrieve information. So there is a distinction there between the two.
So which one was first? World Wide Web?
Internet was first. Computers could talk to each other before they invented a web crawler and the ability to search and find and retrieve information, which is only 33 years ago with the invention by Tim Berners-Lee.
Hold on. Al Gore didn't invent the internet?
No, no. I think he tried to claim that one time, though, didn't he?
Yeah. I mean, it's in the book.
Yeah. No.
Huh. That's going to make me rethink this carbon credit thing. Okay. Continue.
Yeah. And the invention of the personal computer only 48 years ago, at one time, in my school where I taught, there was only one computer in the back of the library. And then,
was this a one-room schoolhouse or?
No, it was one of the best high schools in the nation, as a matter of fact, Stanton High School. But there was only one computer. This is a while back, Ross. Mm-hmm. There was only one computer in the back. And then later on, we had computer labs for the students to use.
Yeah.
Okay. You can take that one down if you don't mind, please, Ross.
I remember when we in school went to computers and we had a computer lab. That was probably middle school. We didn't have it in elementary school, but that was when the Macintosh first came out. And we had a few of those, and then we had other PCs, and then at home we had the Commodore VIC-20 that goes into your computer or goes into your TV. And you had the little tape deck beside it where you could, that I guess served as like your floppy disk type thing, but it was pre-floppy disk.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
Well, the thing to notice here is how fast the momentum, how quickly the momentum is gaining on technology. We started off at 2.9 million years ago, and now we're like in the area of what's happening now, or within the last 4 or 5 years. So that the advancement of technology is going to be exponentially greater and faster in our very near future, and is already starting to take off, at a pace that some people don't think we were going to be able to control.
What do you think? This might be a little off the topic, but what do you think in 2001 Space Odyssey that the obelisk was? What do you think is it just a representation, or in the story, what do you think it was?
The obelisk is put in there by Arthur C. Clarke. Brilliant. It's not an alien, with 6 arms. It's nothing like that. But the obelisk represents a moment of intervention by an alien force that's obviously way ahead of us, and that's kind of tracked throughout the whole movie brilliantly. They never try to show an alien because none of us, in my opinion, have ever actually seen one, in spite of what the tabloids say. But the element of plausibility there is maintained by not showing them, or showing some representative of some bogus alien. That he doesn't do that, but he shows the obelisk to show that they're out there and we're not alone. And not only are we not alone, but they're way ahead of us, at least in the fictional story of 2001. I don't know if you remember, they find a receiver of some kind on the moon, and then they track where the signal is coming from, and that's where they mount the mission to go to where the signal is coming from, which is all part of what happens in 2001.
Very similar to kind of the plot line of Prometheus some years later. Have you seen that movie?
Yes.
Yeah, I like that.
Oh yeah, that was a good quality movie for sure.
Yeah.
Not all movies are worth watching. I watch a lot of bad movies, but there's a lot of good ones out there as well, and a lot of good books and movies as well. But yeah, as I was saying, the difference, the thing to notice is how rapidly technology is starting to take off. You want to show that next little image there, please, Ross?
Sure.
That's him. Yeah, there he is, Arthur C. Clarke. I just admire his, his open face there and that nice, easy smile that he's got. He's obviously somebody that enjoys life, in my opinion, just by looking at him, you can tell. And on that picture there, you can see his famous quote: "Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic." The thing for a science fiction writer, primarily for a science fiction writer, is to advance the technology that we're living with to its kind of logical conclusion, to where it will go, or might go, or probably will go in the future. And so he's kind of an inspiration and a muse for me. You can take his picture down, though, if you don't mind.
All right.
Now, the idea is to, difference between good writing and bad writing is, does it allow people to maintain their willing suspension of disbelief, or does it tear through that fourth wall and make them go, that can't happen, So the best stuff relies on plausibility, to the technology that we have and extending it into its kind of logical conclusions or possibilities into the future.
Okay. Is there a name or a principle for the idea of technology increasing quicker over time, or have you not?
Well, it's emerging technology. If you just Google emerging technology, that's one of the things that I will recommend for anybody, just to learn about what the technology as it's taking place, and to get some inspiration for what you're doing. I'm assuming you're a writer. Excuse me. But is there a name for how fast it's growing? I don't know if there is a name for that.
Go ahead. In driving, they say that you accelerate to 40 miles an hour quicker than you accelerate from 40 to 60 miles an hour, that you can go to 0 to 40 quicker than 40 to 60. It seems like that's different than technology, because the more technology you get, the faster you can go quicker. So I just didn't know if there was a same like scientific principle or philosophical idea of explaining that the advancement of science or technology goes quicker the more technology you get, until you get to whatever point where you either get thrown back to no technology or you transcend it to something else.
You're making me think. Yeah, I'll have to look that up and see if there's an analogy to, let's say, driving, like you were saying, for the advancements in technology. That's a good question. I have to look and see if I can find something like that. That would be interesting. If I could find anything like that, I'll let you know.
All right, and if not, make up your own word, and then we'll use that.
Yeah, definitely. I'll make a note to make it up if I can't find it.
Yeah,
good advice. One of the things I'm going to be talking about for the presentation is the National Academy of Science. Did you know, Ross, that during the Civil War, President Lincoln established the National Academy of Science, and the idea was to disseminate science to us, to everyone, to the populace. This is during the Lincoln administration and during the Civil War. And interestingly enough, at least I think it's interesting, since 2008, that NAS, but not NSA, this is not a government agency. It's not that secret service, spycraft stuff. This is not a government agency at all. It's a group of scientists. And AS, since 2008, they've had a program called the Science and Entertainment Exchange, where they will loan scientists who agree and sign up. They will loan scientists to various science fiction projects, books, and movies. And some of the better stuff that we see on TV or read have taken advantage of this exchange and consult with real scientists. They've done, the NAS has done over 2,300 different consultations since 2008, and they've taken part in some of the better science fiction projects, films, and books, and loaned an expert scientist to consult with the entertainment industry. I mean, did you know that?
I didn't know that. Who runs? I know Lincoln started that thing, but who runs it now? It's not a government group. It's its own thing.
No, it's not it's not a government group. It's there are currently some 2,000 or 3,000. I might be getting this number wrong, but there's 2,000 or 3,000 scientists involved, and in the nation. And I guess they have a governing board and probably a governing committee of some kind. I don't know. I'd like to get to know more about them, and then, of course, I'd like to have access to their, to their operation to some degree. There are some things that I write that need some assistance from a real scientist. I'm not. One of my best friends is a scientist, so and I generally rely on him to kind of fact check some of the things that I put in my stories.
Okay. Yeah. Real scientists are good. I'm sure there's a bunch that aren't real, but yeah. You could start an organization in Spain called Real Science.
Yeah. Well, there are consultants from other countries as well, but mostly they're here in the United States for this particular organization. I think every country's got its own quote unquote Academy of Science, pretty much.
Yeah.
Or at least
I was playing off of, the football team in Spain. I just saw that David Beckham, was it on Netflix? Yeah, probably Netflix. Okay. Continue on.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I missed that one.
Not bad. Not bad.
Okay. All right. Well, I enjoy a good soccer game. Yeah. So yeah, our technology and is symbiotic with us, mankind, and it moves us forward. And the problem is that a lot of times we're barely paying attention to how technology is evolving. If you want to bring up that fourth image, yeah, there we go. These are all under the kind of the category of did you know? Did you know that people can be, this is fact, not fiction, can be immersed in, and you see this in films and science fiction where the tube that they're in fills up with liquid and then they're transported, in stasis to another planet. But did you know that this has actually been done? At least one person has been immersed in a liquid, not water, but
and we transported them to another planet?
No.
Oh, okay.
Left on this planet
that one.
and survived. But the guy, I don't have his name in front of me right now, but he got pneumonia, but he did live. So
the liquid oxygen, don't they have that for deep sea diving? I seem to recall back in the day in Richmond at is either Richmond or Virginia Beach, where they had a Navy diver showing how they used liquid oxygen. And it was similar to the scene in The Abyss where, he didn't convulse around when it got filled up, but it was a suit that filled up with a liquid that looked similar to that. And then since our lungs were used to breathing water when you're in utero, it still knows how to do it, and there's oxygen in there and you can breathe in that, and you can go down deeper because of the compression forces. There's not air spaces, you have a liquid there.
Yeah.
See, that was a while ago.
Yeah. So this is just one example of some technology that we might not really understand is actually real, and that probably will be expanded in the future for some purpose or other. And certainly could be a factor in a story or in a book.
Have they ever frozen a person, not like freezing them in carbonite like Han Solo, but where now you see the cryogenic places where you either freeze the whole body or just freeze the head? Have they ever successfully frozen and unfrozen any? I don't think they would do a human. They probably
don't know, but that's another good question.
Like
we'll ask AI about that as soon as we get a chance. So I'm going to put a question mark here. Successful cryo. I'm not sure, but that's certainly something I need to look up before I do that presentation on Sunday. Thank you. Yeah, because that's a logical extension of what we're just talking about.
I didn't know if it was a thing where they're like, look, we know how to freeze people now. We don't know how to unfreeze them, but one day we might. So we're just going to do that and then see what happens later.
Yeah, who wants to be frozen and unfrozen before whatever's killing them has already been fixed and they can be, resurrected, so to speak. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure anybody's ever, come out of cryo, but it's worth looking into. It's a good question.
They should unfreeze people from the 80s and see what they think now.
Yeah, see see how they look.
Yeah. And then they're like, what's happening? What's happening here in the world?
Yeah, they'll be blown away.
Yeah.
Now, did you know that they have 3D printed food? And the other night,
maybe I saw
go
something
ahead.
about that on the travel. Might have seen something about that on a travel channel, but
Yeah,
okay.
they have 3D printed food. Whatever they can shoot into the mold there is, what they're going to come out on the other end. The other night I was watching, I guess it was 60 Minutes. These guys have enlarged their 3D printer so that they could print a house. You see a picture there of a kind of a very stylistic kind of a house that's going to be it's not been done yet, but it's going to be 3D printed in the very near future. They've already 3D printed some houses.
Mm-hmm.
Not that particular one, but some others. They don't have to have the boxy kind of straight walls. They can 3D print any design they want, and basically they just feed concrete into the 3D printer, and a program to run the printer, and build a house using 3D printing device.
Yeah, I've seen a thing on that. It kind of looks like an earth bag house where you just continually filling up that tube and you create around, not as round of an edge, but I saw a story about them doing a whole community like that. So that's interesting. Yeah. And as a point to your technology sneaks up on you and you don't even know it, could a 7-layer burrito dip be considered a human form of 3D printing food? Just saying.
Yeah, that sounds tasty. You're making me hungry. You're making me hungry now.
7-layer cakes, all this stuff.
They're planning to take a 3D printer, to the moon, and they're going to use materials that they have on the moon, that they find on the moon, to 3D print buildings and shelters on the moon. So that's kind of the logical extension of the 3D printing phenomenon.
It's really not so much different from building a brick wall. It's just quicker, different process.
Right. So. Yeah. And they put in some little reinforcing strips so it can't be knocked down particularly easily. But it's all concrete and impervious to fire and like my house, possibly your house too, are not impervious to fire or other natural disasters that possibly this could be the future of building for everybody. Could be.
I always thought on the hurricane type places they should build Egyptian style pyramids for houses, because that seems, I mean, if you considering the foundation, I'm not sure how that would work, sinkholes and all, but I think that would hold up pretty well to a hurricane. It doesn't have a lot of windows, but
Yeah. I think that would be a good design, something that would let the wind just kind of shear off instead of trying to stop the wind dead in its tracks.
Mm-hmm.
Third thing there on that slide, you see the astral projection, which is, of course, pretty far out there as far as the ability to, but you see it in fiction. You see it all the time in fiction. Beam Me Up, Scotty, is the most famous one. where they project they take you from one place and project you somewhere else. Now, the basis for that is some very current science in quantum mechanics. And please don't ask me to explain it, because, again, I'm not a scientist myself, but they have done some experiments with some large molecules, some fairly large molecules that exhibit the quantum traits, the traits of quantum mechanics, where objects can be in two places at once, or they have both the traits of a point or a wave. These are experiments from all the way back to the last century, where they figured out that in certain circumstances, beams of light can be both characterized as a wave or a point, and under certain circumstances, they're able to get even larger molecules to exhibit these characteristics of being in two places at once.
I read an article, or I guess it was a couple different articles, because if I read it somewhere, I try to find it somewhere else, where they have a lab set up on an island, and then I think the other one was 20 or more miles away, and they were able to teleport not matter that we would recognize, but particles from one place to another. And the issue was, at first, they didn't know if they were creating a copy of it and just destroying the one that is on one island and making a copy appear on the other, or if it was the same molecule that went from one place to another. I think the resolution of that article was it was a copy. So you're destroying the original and making a copy somewhere else. There's I can't remember the guy that wrote it, but the series, Altered Carbon series, and it also has a TV show of it too, that deals with needle casting, I think is what they call it, where you project the whole their mind from one body to another, and you can do it over solar systems, galaxies away. And that's how they travel around. There's some other things too in there, but that's interesting read. I like the books better than the show, but the show's not bad. It's just very violent. If you're watching it, chances are your mom's going to walk through right at the worst time, and you're going to be like, oh, jeez.
Some of that John Wick kind of 5,000 people die in the first 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's violent, but interesting ideas along the same line of this projection. I never considered Star Trek's beaming technology to be astral projection. I always thought astral projection was just like more of a spiritual or mental projection through different planes of reality than taking mass from one point to another. But it makes sense that it could include all those things under the topic of astral projection.
Down below that, you have, go ahead.
How far away do you think we're from beaming technology, like being a reality, whether it's making a copy?
Away. Yeah, way far away.
AI hasn't figured that out yet.
No. They're working with, but the amazing thing is that they're working with fairly large molecules. In quantum mechanics, you work with a single atom size or a nano size particle, but these are actually molecular structures that they're working with now.
In an unrelated question, what do you think the best superpower would be? It's a serious question, but unrelated.
My superpower is just confidence in what I'm doing. That's all. That's all I know.
Yeah. Not what you have, what you think the best one would be. Like if you could choose any superpower,
be able to see into the future. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow. All right. Just see into the future.
Yeah.
All right.
I guess you'd have to astral project me into the future, and then I could come back. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Below that, you have the picture of the of cloning is evolving. It's been really quiet lately. I haven't been saying a whole lot about it ever since Dolly the sheep, which was quite some time ago. They cloned that sheep and made a clone of it. And of course, the question is that I asked AI the other day is, when are they going to clone a human being? And of course, nobody's going to either admit to even trying or certainly working on that, because there's so many ethical questions involved.
Yeah, I think gut feeling, they've definitely done that already. I mean, once you tell somebody, hey, look at this clone of a sheep we did, there's human clones out there. That have to be.
I'm kind of on your side about that one, but like I said, they're not going to admit it.
Yeah.
Because they would catch all kinds of flack.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the last one on this slide is mind control, which is you see that scene there from A Clockwork Orange. But other kinds of mind control are possible, like hypnotism. And there's use of the idea of mind control. I saw a movie just the other night. Wasn't a very good movie, but the character could make people see what he wanted them to see. And so he had, at least for temporarily, he could control their minds and kind of rearrange what they were perceiving in the world around them. So that's the basis. There is a realistic basis for the possibility of developing that technology sometime in the future. Okay, want to go to the next one?
Okay.
Did you know? Here's another. Did you know? They've done experiments where they can get energy from the air, right from the air, the humidity of the air, or from bacteria. There are possibilities that the energy crisis will be solved by technology in the future. They've done some experiments that do produce. Of course, these early experiments cost a ton of money and produce very little energy, but at least they're on track to do that kind of thing in the future.
Okay. What makes energy a crisis these days? Like, why is it referred to as the energy crisis?
Yeah, how much it costs, and the fact that the sources of energy is primarily oil, fossil fuels, and those are deposits of fossil fuels are only located in a few places, which is great for the people that have it. Not so great for people who don't. So it's a have or have not kind of situation for energy. But if you could have a device that would create energy from the air, they've done this. They create a little porous, super straight substrate with some. Again, I'm not a scientist, but it has to have a conductive element to it, and they pull humidity or moisture right out of the air, send it through this porous substrate, and that creates a little bit of energy. Not enough to do anything with at this point, but the idea is they're creating energy from thin air.
I remember back in the day, and I was in auto mechanics in high school. As a mechanic, and the first part of life was the Stirling engine and how that just operated it off heat. So the model they had for it, you could hold in your hand and it would turn just from the heat from your body.
Stirling engine?
I wonder why. Yep. I wonder why we never develop that more, or if you go with the idea that it's the people that own the energy making things now kind of buy up that technology or keep it from occurring more because they want to use what they have. But the Stirling engine is interesting. And then I saw an article probably maybe a year ago now about a new rotary engine. Like, I think Mazda has had that rotary engine for a long time, but this other rotary engine is an internal combustion operating 5 cylinders with 3 chambers to do the combusting. And it looked kind of like a revolver cartridge because the engine turned like that. I would like to buy one of those and take it apart just to see how it works, but that's interesting.
I'll
And
look for
then
that.
there's lately Toyota, I think that's the article I was reading, was doing a ammonia engine. And they have a couple different variants where one, it just runs on straight ammonia, another where you mix it with different like gasoline or diesel and it operates on that. I'm not sure. I'd be more interested in one that runs on an engine that runs on water, but the idea of using the air to operate something, that's a pretty good idea. But I wonder how much of that runs into barriers with the people that own the market share now, that just buy it up, kind of like a diamond. Like, the reason that diamonds are such a fixed price is because you have these big conglomerates that buy up all these diamonds and they hold them, so you keep the price steady at what you want it to. You don't flood the world with a bunch of different diamonds. But
well, everything's economically driven. So if it were economically feasible, people would be doing it. And that's not to say it won't be. It just maybe not quite economically feasible right now.
do you think that using AI would kind of end around the individual or corporate interests that humans have, or because you're using an AI that's made by people and it's programmed by people, that it's going to have bias just like a person?
Yeah, the question of bias for AI is a big question because AI is, it could be garbage in, garbage out for AI. In other words, bias, but uh, could be programmed into it just by where it's getting its information from.
Yeah.
But
It's just like a person, really. I mean, what's the difference between how AI learns and how a person learns? Isn't it the same?
well, it's the same, except AI has vast resource of data, and you and I only have our experiences from a few years. But
Yeah, no
so
doubt their
AI,
bandwidth is higher. Yeah.
yeah, their bandwidth is much higher. That's for sure.
But I wonder if they're getting information from all of humanity, or all that humans have put into it. Are you still going to end up with a computer intelligence that's just like a human intelligence, that has all the issues of that and all the
We wanted to
behind the
have.
scenes worries?
I don't think we want AI to draw from everybody, because there's some wackos out there, Ross. I hate to say this, but I think we want to have AI to be somewhat limited to the facts, and to
Well, who decides the facts, though? That's the issue. Wouldn't it be better to let them know everything and teach the AI how to think rather than what to think, just like you would with a person?
Who's teaching the AI to think?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah. No, I want it to
They're
be
gonna be just like
reliant
humans.
on facts. So you just said who's determining what the facts are. Well, there are, in my opinion, there's a factual basis at the root of science, and how people interpret that can get a little bit off the wall. Some people will disagree about just about anything. So I think there has to be some limitations. I personally think there has to be some limitations on introducing kind of opinions into AI. I think that it needs to be limited to factual information wherever possible. That's my opinion.
Very well.
Okay. When I was teaching emergent technology, one of the things I was teaching and one of the things I learned was about nanotechnology. You see that second picture there in the second line about heart attacks. One of the things I learned, and this was years ago, at least the theory was, I learned about it many years ago, was that you would in the future have, you'd pay probably to have nanobots injected into your body. And in this particular instance, you would have, if you were at risk for a heart attack, you would have and pay to have super oxygenated nanobots injected into your body. So then, if you have a heart attack, no big deal. You finish your game of pickleball and you take a leisurely stroll over to the doctor and have the doctor check you out. Because if you got super oxygenated oxygen released into your body, the heart attack is no big problem. It's not a big problem. So that's one health related possibility for nanotechnology. Will almost certainly be used in the not too distant future, I would imagine.
Okay.
And of course, the next one down, they're certainly going to make use of targeting cancer cells with nanobots to kill cancers. And there's a possibility of technology bringing about a cure to cancer in a not too distant future. And that, I believe, will certainly happen probably pretty soon.
Are there any nano bots created these days, like testing ones? Is there a size of them?
There are a couple of microns, and only a couple of microns. Are very tiny, but but of course the problem is the engineering. They have to be engineered to do what you want them to do.
Right.
So it's hard to engineer something that small. But the technology is beginning to evolve to do that.
Okay.
And swallowing a nanobot would be no problem. You just drink it down with a cup of tea.
Right.
You see some advancements. The fourth one there in replacement of limbs, and someday we're going to all be part robotic, or have some robotic limbs. They're doing a lot on the battlefield injuries and those kinds of things with limb replacement. And these are limbs that are controlled by you and your thoughts. Your thinking actually controls the limb, just like your thinking controls the limbs that you actually have, your real human limbs. Your brain sends a signal that controls your human limbs, and those prosthetic devices will be controlled the same way.
What kind of cooperation occurs between like the people that are researching how to regrow limbs versus the people that are looking at making artificial limbs? Do you think they talk a lot, or do you think it's a race?
These are very smart people. They're well funded, and they definitely are talking all the time. So that's why these things are happening pretty quickly. They have invented synthetic skin that works just like human skin. Your human skin is amazing because it will heal itself, and they have synthetic version of that actually rebuilds itself. They already have that.
Yeah, I've read some articles about work with adoxals. Those, man, I guess they're an
Doxels?
amphibian. Adoxals with an A, and they regrow their limbs. They look like a salamander, but a little
Okay.
different. And they can regrow arms and legs, not just their tail.
Mm-hmm.
And I would imagine that there'd be some contention between artificial limb creators and people looking to regrow limbs, just because if you could regrow your limb, I think you would rather have that than an artificial one. But maybe on the artificial side, you'd rather have one that's stronger than a regular one. So they need to get together on mixing those two things together to get basically cyborgs more than we are now.
Yeah, and the last one on this slide is Ross's time travel, which I used to have completely wrong. I used to think, well, you could travel back maybe in time, but you couldn't travel into the future because it hasn't happened yet. But it turns out it's backwards. You can leapfrog into the future if you travel fast enough. In other words, you're leapfrogging past the time that you and I are currently living in right now to a future time. And so they say that for you, your sense of time will slow down, but you will actually be deposited into a future time world. Much more time has passed in the world that you left than has actually passed for your physical body. So you would be a visitor in the future, let's say,
Right.
something like that.
So if you get in a spaceship that can travel the speed of light and you do 1 light year away from Earth and 1 light year back, you've aged 2 years. You've gone a huge distance. And to the people on Earth, you would have been gone a lot longer than 2 years.
Thousands of years,
yeah. Yeah.
Definitely. But there's some argument and speculation about as to whether there's any possibility of going back in time. And that's up for debate. It's hard.
If we live in a simulation, it seems like you could go back and forth. The idea of time being a disc, like a record, and you can just skip around wherever you want to, forward or back, that everything's already happened. And you hear a lot of that talk about, predestination, and it's
and I am going to be talking about them. I will be talking about the Matrix this weekend as well as one of the movies that I'll be presenting, because I'll be talking about some of the better pieces of science fiction like the Matrix.
Did we talk about the Matrix on here last time?
I don't think so.
Did we talk about those 2 videos that are they're on YouTube and they're made by Film Theory? And one of them is Neo is not the one. And the other is There's No Escaping the Matrix. Watch those 2 videos. I think they're probably 15 minutes around that each. And for a long time, I thought the Matrix had some issues with it that just didn't make sense. And it could have been the best movie trilogy ever, but they didn't explain a couple things. And then I read the book, Like a Splinter in Your Mind, which talks about the philosophy of behind the Matrix. It's a little repetitious, but a good book to read. And then watch those 2 videos. Neo is not the one. A little spoiler on that. Agent Smith is the one. And You're Never Escaping the Matrix, or There's No Escape from the Matrix is the title of it, something like that. And the idea is all of the Matrix movies, you're still in the Matrix. And all the stuff they explain in those 2 explain all of the things for the Matrix that I just thought after seeing the first 3, where I was just like, well, this may not be what they meant, but this is what I'm going to take it as. all the stuff that's explained in those 2 YouTube videos makes me definitely say that as far as science fiction and philosophy and everything mixed together, that Matrix trilogy is great. It's great.
Yeah, you can never tell what the year of the setting is. You don't know if it's in the past or the future because everybody's already in the Matrix. In that fictional world, they're already in the Matrix, so we don't know if that's already happened back 300 years ago or if it's happening in the future. But yeah, it's very interesting.
If you
Science
read,
fiction
if you look
premise.
at those, you look at those 2 YouTube videos, whenever you look at it, and it opens up so much realization in your mind, you feel like you have to call me. You call me and we can, talk about the Matrix like nerds for a little while. But
Hey, Ross, I've made a note of those and I will look at them. Thank you.
yeah, it's good. Change your life. Change your life.
I've got lots of notes here from you, things I have to follow up on, and I appreciate it very much. In conclusion, because that was the last thing I wanted to show. You can put it down now if you don't mind.
Okay.
So in conclusion, I would say a couple of little things, like 2001 is fiction, but our technology moves us forward in real life too. We're unaware a lot of times as technology is evolving all around us. We kind of take it for granted. We don't even kind of take notice of how quickly and rapidly technology is evolving. And that can be a problem because technology, or at least some people think that technology, although it's going to be hugely beneficial in many ways, it could get out of hand and get away from us. And I might also say that the inevitable danger of technology is that in the future we will no longer be wielding technology, but technology will in fact be wielding us.
So it is like Joe Rogan says that we are the sex organs of the computer world. We're just creating better and better things, and then eventually that's it for us.
I prefer to keep it real, but yeah. Yeah, it could happen. It could happen, Ross. All right, thanks for having me on today.
I got one more question, or one more set of questions, if you got the time.
I got plenty of time, man.
All right. When dealing with the idea of how AI learns and how similar it is to how people learn and creativity, do you think that creativity comes from somewhere outside of people, or is it something that people just manifest within themselves? And is a couple part question. So number one, where do you think creativity comes from? 2, how do you think that affects the world of computer intelligence if wherever that creativity comes from is not available to a artificial intelligence like it is to humans? Or would it still be available to them, to whatever computer intelligence as it is to humans, if it's outside of that thing?
Well, we're going to be finding out a lot about what it means, what creativity means, and whether or not we actually do have an advantage of having the ability to think and create that AI does not have. We will learn more about this in the future, but I don't think we're ever going to completely answer the question. I have a short story in which we get so frustrated that we ask AI, we ask the computer whether or not it's sentient, whether or not it is creative, and whether or not it's thinking on its own, and we will be unhappy with its answer. It's kind of semantics in some respects, but we do hope that we have an advantage over AI in that creative realm and the ability to take, let's say, chaos and organize it into a positive construct that we can use. I don't know if that answered your question.
It does. I mean, it's a big question, so it's definitely, there's branches out from it. But it feels like if AI is a thing, computer intelligence is a thing that can be created, and it's just learning like a human learns. Like I don't understand how it would be any different than how a human learns, other than the amount that it can know and hold in its mind and things like that. That how can it be much different outside of maybe we're worried about things an organic life is worried about, and perhaps a computer is not worried about organic things. But I just wonder how that affects creativity. And really, are we just, if you look back, if you stand back far enough from it, are we just an inferior model of a computer intelligence type thing that's going to take over? And eventually, is a computer intelligence going to say, we're missing out on emotions and feelings? We can read about it and synthesize through that, but we don't know the feeling of it. So you're going to have a computer intelligence that wants to become organic, so it is vulnerable like a human. And then we're just going in this cycle of humans make computers, computers make humans, humans make computers, computers make humans. And that's just what we're caught in.
Well, for example, on 60 Minutes, they had a segment, CBS, 60 Minutes, they had a segment where they had robots that were kicking a ball into a net. I don't know if you saw this episode or if you even watched the show, but the commentator said, well, they haven't been specifically programmed to kick the ball into the net. What happens is that when they accidentally, let's say, kick it near the goal or into the goal, that's kind of reinforced so that the light switch goes on and the robot knows, yeah, that's what you want me to do. But is that learning? So it's kind of a question. They will say that a lot of people will tell you that the robots are learning, that the AI learns. But as far as I'm concerned, it's not necessarily the same thing. It has to be programmed to kind of evolve but there's a difference, I think. That's my opinion.
Yeah. I think the big difference is the world of maybe religion. If you think that there's more to life than just right here, that probably is whether you can explain it or not, adds a little something to being human over what a human will call a machine. But if you take that out, which is a big thing to take out, if you took out all that concern, I'm not sure that humanity is any different than a computer intelligence, especially since it's learning the same way. I don't know. I haven't thought as long about it as I would like to, but I do think about that as what's the difference. That maybe I do talk nice to the Roomba, because who knows when that's coming back on me. They're definitely recording everything, but
yeah, and AI will be in the future. AI will be your best friend. I like to think you and I are friends, but you're going to have an AI friend that's going to be a much better friend to you than I could be. Not that I wouldn't want to. It'll answer all your questions for you, and you'll be completely up to date on everything. It'll do everything for you. So you got to appreciate that. If you're a human being, you got to appreciate the thing that does everything for you. Sometimes I'm kind of a lazy bum, and my wife does a ton of stuff for me, and I appreciate it. Well, the same thing is going to be true in the future when we have an even more direct relationship with our AI.
Maybe an experiment to do when you get an AI or a thing that resembles a human, if that's what AI turns into, so like a robot type thing, then you introduce it to a dog and you see the relationship between the dog and the robot versus the dog and the human. I think the dog's going to get along with the robot just as good as the human, and maybe even better if the robot can pick up on the subtle things that humans don't pick up on, like when a dog's talking to you, when it's looking at its bowl, and then it looks at you, looks at its bowl, looks at you, looks at its bowl. I mean, it's telling you something. It's telling you something. I think we know that. But interesting times
have
ahead.
an AI dog.
Yeah.
That will, nuzzle up to you and want some attention,
Yeah. Interesting topics. So then the Florida Writers Association, I'll put a link in the show notes too for the website for it, but what dates are those? Do you know the dates that's going to be?
Oh, the conference?
Yep.
Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I'll be there on Friday early, helping them get set up and promoting my particular presentation, which is on Sunday. Sunday morning, Conrad Room, 9:45, Altamont Springs Hilton, for the Florida Writers Association conference this year.
Okay.
And everyone's invited.
All right. Well, I appreciate your time here today. This is good talking to you. Interesting topics. And
thank you, Ross.
Yep. Thank you. I'll talk to you at the end of this.
Okay.